to be getting rained on, but oh well. All of this is informal, none of this is like what you must do or anything. This is just a bit of info for you guys, so if you do buy a new car, just something to look out for. Step one, providing you've already bought this car, so you've already bought it. This is not inspecting a car, this is you already own the car now. So we're going through a safety check. So by that we go through the parts on the car and the history of the car. So we want to check when it was built, any major mods to it that we can see. It is on the ground. Usually I would recommend getting a jack and just jacking the car up and having a look under the car. The reason you want to do that is so you can check the rails, especially something like this. The condition and the age of this, you really want to have a look at the rails to see if they're rusted or if they're bent, dented, you know, that kind of thing. I have done this previously, and as you can see, this car is very, very, very low. So I'm not going to do that again. Just take my word for it. So everything underneath the car I'm happy with. Now, this car in particular, I have to look at things like rust. So rust in the floor pans, rust in the rear hatch, or rust in the engine bays, wheel wells, the lower door sills, across under here and here. So there is rust in some of these. This car is not perfect. There is a bit of rust on this side as well. So there you go. You can see that it has a bit of rust. Nothing huge or scary, thankfully. And it has a bit of a dent here where somebody's probably jacked up off it incorrectly. This is specifically to this car, but you can apply this to any car that you buy. So for this model, I'm looking, this is an S30 240Z. It is a 1971 model. So I'm looking at things like the fact it has a 260Z bonnet on it, which it actually doesn't. It's a 240Z with 260Z vents cut into it. So that's little things like that I can look at and go, okay, cool. I know what's happening with the car. Aftermarket front spoiler. We have big wheels. I've also got things, we've got Woolwood brakes, so we've got a 6-pot brake upgrade here. If you do a bit more digging, you can find that this stock looking car actually has a hydro. So this is a hydraulic handbrake. Not found on these cars or these models usually. So that's one cool little thing I found of this car so far. Second thing, doesn't have the factory steering wheel, it has a Nardi on it. So they've removed the OEM steering wheel, which is actually quite a lot bigger. It has a big bonky thing in the middle as well, if you guys are familiar with Zeds. It's also got a monster tack. That someone has pulled out the factory gauges and put in a gigantic big monster tack. As well as basic things like that, you can see it's also had an aftermarket Grady knob put on it. It's also got a Varix, so this is an aftermarket exhaust. And it's also running aftermarket wheel nuts, which these are quite important to find if you definitely buy a brand new car. This has lock nuts. So these are not your average nuts. And if you do not have this, they become a big pain. Yeah, notice that. We can see it has bucket seats. So again, a bit more modifications to it. It doesn't have any rear in it. And it also looks like it has coilovers. And an aftermarket sound system. So let's pop the bonnet and see what we're dealing with. So if you're just joining us, we're doing step one, which is a bit of a safety check on a new car that you've just bought. So things like parts and history is what we're mainly looking at here, seeing if there's any major damage or anything I need to look at on the car. For instance, any rust if you're buying an older car, any damage if you're looking for any accidents, and any kind of big significant things that you'll see like oil leaks, damage, dodgy wiring, just that kind of stuff. So I don't think I really need to go into detail about this one too much, but this is not the factory motor. This is an L28 out of probably a 280ZX. These originally come with an L24. This also comes with twin SU carbs. So this has 40mm Delortos, which have individual throttle bodies, ITBs, also known as. It's got coilovers. What else? It has a water pump and a fuel pump delete, if you come over and have a look at this. So straight away, these are all modifications on the car from a factory motor. You can see it's got a block-off plate here for the mechanical fuel pump, and it has a block-off plate here for the original water pump. And you can see now it also has electric fans, whereas these come out with a clutch fan on the front of the water pump. So this is all quite nicely done, but it's aftermarket. Now you see here as well, I have a electric water pump. So that's again not factory. So if you're brand new to cars and you're looking at this and you're not sure what you're looking at, just look for things that don't look like what you'd usually look for. So look for bright colors, look for shiny things, look for anything that doesn't look right or looks kind of out of place and doesn't look factory, especially when you get a new car. So things like little wiring down here. There you go, bright colorful wiring. So that's aftermarket, and that was to run the starter and the electricals. You can see under here, this is definitely not original, so it's coming off some of the old wiring, but this is all new. So this is all the fuses that run all the electric water pump, fuel pump, which is in the back, and the fans. Now I won't go into too much detail with this car, I'll do this in the coming vlogs, but there are other modifications on this car. But let's just keep talking about the basic steps of a car. So we've seen it's got a pretty brand new battery, which is good. It's always handy to have a fairly new looking battery. So can't see any corrosion on the terminals, anything like that. So there's things that you want to look for if you're getting a brand new car. I'm looking for any oil leaks and stuff. Now this one does have a bit of an oil leak. You can see the valve cover gasket here, or tappet cover gasket, depending on your age and generation that you're born. It is leaking, so I do have to replace that. I'm going to show you something that you won't find on most cars, but it is important to look at. And it's important to turn a car on when you get it back, because you never know if, you know, thermofans have been wired up dodgily, if something's not working, if something's arcing out or sparking, or if something is not doing what it's supposed to do. So for instance, I'll give you an example. Alright, so we're going to turn this on and I'm going to show you what I'm talking about. So you'll hear the fuel pump. Now come check this out. So the electric fuel pump will fill up the carburetors. Now you can hear the water pumps going. The water pump's going because it's an electric water pump. If it was mechanical, you'd have to turn the car completely on. The car is not currently doing what I'm trying to show you it. Alright, let's start it and I'll show you. Alright, so straight off the bat, you can hear it doesn't run overly well right now. Now this is because it doesn't have a choke on it anymore. This doesn't run too right is because it's actually running too rich. So when I turn this car off, you might see fuel dripping out of the bottom here. Now this is really important, especially on this car, because if you have a look down here, that's my exhaust. Now raw fuel is going to come out of these and drop straight onto my exhaust. Let's see if it does it. There you go, it's starting to go. So if that drops down onto a hot exhaust, that can set my car straight on fire. So yeah, so it's a very good example as to why you want to check cars over, especially when you get them back, even if the even if the seller says that they're fine, or they run fine on the test drive. Bring it back to your house and have a good look over everything. Start the car up, and have a look at everything. Very, very important. Electric water pumps are cool. It has all its compliance and retro plates, and if it's applicable, any mod plates for things like, for example, bigger brakes, bucket seats, hand brakes, etc. I'm not going to go into detail on this car, you guys don't need that in this vlog, so let's move straight on to step 2. So step 2, I can't really do it at the moment because it's just started raining on me and it's pretty pointless to do. I also did it yesterday. So I will talk you through it, but it is a ritual wash. I love doing this. This is like the time I spend 3 to 4 hours going through and cleaning, detailing the car, checking it over, looking at everything, and it kind of gives me a bit of an update and a visual kind of checkpoint on the car, its condition, and where it currently is as I've bought it. So what I do usually, I get a bucket, a sponge, I give it a nice good wash, and I'll check over everything and anything on the car. So things like, I can see that this has been taped up, so there is quite a lot of rust on this car. A lot of the rust has been taped up to avoid it from corroding so quickly. You see when they've put on the bigger wheels and they've done the brake upgrade, at some point they've ran the wrong offset and they've sucked this guard under the car. You can see they've done an aerial delete. So this wing looks pretty okay, it's on the car, but if I have a closer look at this wing, you can see it's not actually even attached to the car. And under here, it's coming off its mount completely. So this is a little mount for it. It's not attached at all. So things like that I'd notice when I'm washing the car and I'm moving things, and you can just straight away tell. Other things, it's got a bit of a dent here where it looks like he's ran into a pot plant or something. They've removed the rear bash bar, or chrome bumper. The flares definitely have seen better days. They're a little haggard. So things like this, it's really good to check, because now I know, I have to put this on before I do 100 kilometers on the highway. Otherwise I might lose my flares. And they're not exactly put on too well. So this ritual that I like going through doesn't just apply to the exterior of the car. It's not just get a sponge out, wash the car. It's a whole bunch of other things. I'm also looking at the condition of gaskets, seals, I'm looking where water might leak, I'm looking where rust might be. Again, if this is a newer car that you've just bought and you're going through this kind of little checklist with, rust might not be a big problem for you. But a lot of Japanese 90s cars, it's inevitable they'll have a bit of rust. They've come from overseas, usually Japan, near the waterside, etc. So when I'm doing this step 2 ritual detail, I'm checking everything, and it gives me an idea of where everything is, what needs replacing, what doesn't, what I need to fix, and pretty much the overall condition of the car. So there are no surprises. I'm not going to go somewhere and, you know, it's going to be a hot day and turn my fan on and not have a fan. So if you're buying a fairly modified aftermarket car, you want to make sure all your gauges work, they're all wired up correctly, all the lights in them work. Now I did check this earlier, the Varix in this does work, which is great. So that's kind of a bit of a basic overview. Other things to check is obviously see if you have any rust in your wheel wells or in the wheel arches, anything in the back. Check your seals, make sure there's no water that runs down the inside or pools anywhere. And in my case I have a bit of a broken interior, which was probably due to the hydro. Okay, so that's pretty much it for step 2. Now, step 3 is what I like to call a service reset. Now, regardless what you do when you first buy a car, doesn't matter what the seller says or anything, it doesn't matter if they're your friend. Regardless, if you're buying a car off someone, the best practice is to do a full service reset on your car, so you know the condition of the car, you know everything's topped up, you know everything's new, and you know everything's been replaced that needs to be replaced. What you want to do with the service reset is pretty much go over the entire car, do all your fluids pretty much. So do your, again, this can be as basic or as full on as you want to make it. If you want to go basic, do your radiator, check it's topped up, do your oil filter, and check your brake master and check your clutch master. What else? Stuff like that. That's like real basic. If you want to go a bit more full on, you want to do spark plugs, you could do a fuel flush if you really wanted to, you could do a radiator flush if you really wanted to, and you could also go as far as doing, again, this is if you want to go full on, you could go as far as doing a brand new water pump or a brand new timing kit on it. Like, it doesn't matter, you can take this way pedantic, or you can just keep it fairly basic. So if you're new to cars, don't worry, I'm not a mechanic either. I'm just going to run you through some basic things and things that you need to look at. That's it. If you are a mechanic, I don't think I need to go into too much detail about any of this because you guys already know what you're doing. So what I like to do as a basic service reset is I like to top up or to replace my radiator coolant. So in this case, this is quite important. You can see in the top here, I have tiny little floating aluminium particles. It looks like glitter. So what this straight away tells me is that someone has put aluminium chemi-weld in this radiator. Now this could be used to stop a leak in the radiator, but it could also be used to stop a head gasket from leaking, or a heater core, or something like that. So it just tells me that there's something not totally right with the cooling system, which in this case is I need to replace my radiator at some stage. In your case, just check that it's topped up and that it's full and that you have an overflow, which I've got a Red Bull can as an overflow over here, and that your overflow has a little bit in it as well. I will always replace plugs on a car because I don't know what plugs they run, I don't know what gap they've set their plugs to, and it's just a bit of a peace of mind thing, especially if the car runs rich, which this car definitely does. So that's something I'll add straight up to my list. It's something I recommend doing pretty often as well. It keeps the car running nice. The third thing I'd like to do on my cars is an oil change. Now I will replace my oil filter. It doesn't look too old, but it's always good to replace these no matter what, every time you do an oil change. I'm checking the condition of my oil. Now you can see, hopefully, now you can see on this that my oil is very dark, very dirty and black. So that's not the greatest, and it's definitely time to get it changed. Smell your oil, make sure it smells like oil, and if it's not like a nice caramel color, then you should probably replace it. You don't want it black. Other things to check is your brake and clutch master and the fluid level that you have in that. It's nice and full, it's not black, it doesn't look too bad. It is a bit old, but it's not overly bad. Same with my clutch. Ugh, that's pretty gross. That could do with some changing. You can see how thick that is too. Well, that's definitely to do on my to-do list. Kind of all the basic kind of fluid things you need to worry about in the engine bay. So, oil, radiator coolant, brake fluid, clutch fluid, and fuel if it's something you need to worry about, ignition as well, so being spark. For me, I have to run an ignition coil. You guys might have a dizzy, which is this little guy here, or points and that kind of thing. Anyway, that's mechanical, let's not talk about that. Other things to check, or if you're not doing this yourself, if you're getting somebody to do this for you, good thing to do is replace your gearbox oil and replace your diff oil, because who knows when they were last done, and they are some of your most important things in your car. That is your driveline, and you want to keep your driveline nice and clean and operational and healthy. So because this is the mechanical stage of me fixing the car, I will do stuff like what is below. So as we noticed earlier, the fuel pump is pumping too much fuel up the front and it's flooding the car. So I'm going to put in a fuel pressure regulator, which is what this little guy is here. And these are all the little fittings I need to run it, including the lines. I've got new plugs. I have a gauge so I can tell exactly how much fuel pressure it's getting. That's more to do with the carbureted car, so I won't talk about that for now. You can see there's a good example of what I was talking about when you go through detailing and you find any kind of leaks. So I know now that there is some form of leak somewhere in the back on the seals here that is potentially letting water in, and it's sitting in my wheel well. Eventually that'll rust out my wheel well. Alright, so step 4 of my buy a new car ritual is, of course, rego. We need to drive the thing. So if you haven't already gone for a test drive, or if the car's already registered, then you just need to simply transfer the car into your name. However, because I bought this unregistered, I now need to register the car and take it for a test drive, make sure everything's fine, the suspension feels fine, there's no knocking, it doesn't need any form of wheel alignments, and it drives straight, it doesn't pull. Take your car for a test drive, take it for a nice long test drive, go for about, I don't know, about an hour, get it warmed up, make sure you get it cycling through a full heat cycle, so you know that the cooling system works, you know that your gearbox is fine, you know that the running gear is fine, you know that it's not running rich or that it's running lean, anything like that. If you have gauges, like an air-fuel ratio gauge, all the better. If you don't, if you have an aftermarket car, get one. If you have a new car or a fairly stock car, don't worry about it, you're fine. What are you doing? Sorry, my cat likes hanging with me while I'm doing car stuff. Yeah, so things like that. Make sure all your indicators work, your headlights work, all that kind of thing. So that is your test drive. That is your glorious joyride in your chariot. Are you right there? Do not jump on that car. No. You can smell it. Don't you dare jump on it. She'll do it. I know she will. Rhoda, get off. She likes checking out my cars just as much as I do. I just don't like her climbing on them. This is not too bad though. The paint on this is pretty dead. Alright, stay. Stay right there. That's not staying right there. Alright, sorry, cat interruption. So yeah, step 4, go for your test drive, make sure your car is good, make sure it goes through a full heat cycle, that it runs nicely, it doesn't get hot, no weird smells or noises or anything like that, and enjoy it. Step 5, the last and final of the buy a new car ritual, make it your own. So it is exactly as I said, make it your own. So things like change your wheels over if you have a certain type of wheel or a set of wheels that you like running, put your wheels on. For me, I want to paint my front lip here white, and I want to paint my flares white, and I want to paint the rear ducktail on this white. And then I'll get some custom plates and put the custom plates on. I also want to get new chrome bumpers along the front and the rear, and a whole bunch of other stuff. And yeah, and just have fun with it. Thus concludes the 5 things I like to do when I buy a new car. Hopefully some bits and pieces in here have helped you out or can help you out, or might give you a bit more direction if you're brand new to cars or if you're not so mechanically minded. It might help you so when you do buy a car you know what to look for and some basic things to go over, especially if you're feeling lost, you've just bought it, you don't know what to do, or maybe you do know what to do, but it's things very important. Go through your own little ritual, make up your own little step-by-step guide that you'll go through to make sure your car's safe, that it's mechanically fine, that it's aesthetically going to hold together, and that you won't die. That it's safe, roadworthy, and that you have a bit of a path forward with modifications or whatever you want to do with the car and however you want to go about it. So let me know in the comments what your rituals are, what your 5 things, might not even be 5 things. What is the most important thing that you like doing when you get a new car? Share below, let us know, and I'll catch you guys in the next vlog. Thank you so much for watching, and catch you there. Say hi to the new car, support the channel. I have all my other cars still, they're all still here. Just chilling. I actually blew the turbo on the 32 the other day, which sucks, but I don't think I need to tell you the kind of mods on that car make it perfect for drifting. So stay tuned and we'll see what it does around a track soon, very soon.